Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Matthew, the 9th chapter. And he entered into a ship and passed over and came into his own city. And behold, they brought to him a man sick of the palsy, lying on a bed. And Yahushua, seeing their faith, said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, be of good cheer, thy sins be forgiven thee. And behold, certain of the scribes said within themselves, This man blasphemeth. And Yahushua, knowing their thoughts, said, Wherefore think ye evil in your hearts? And they were saying that because they're like, only God can forgive man's sins. Why is he saying this man's sins are forgiven? For whether is easier to say, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Arise and walk? So which is easier, right? That I told him his sins are forgiven him, or for me to tell him to rise up and walk? But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins. Then saith he to the sick of the palsy, Arise, take up thy bed, and go unto thine house. So he's saying, I openly forgave his sins, so you can know that I have power to forgive sins. Because I could have easily just told him, yo, rise up, take your bed, and leave. All right, but which is easier to say, like he told him. So to show you, right, the power that Yahushua had, he forgave the man's sins, and then he healed him in front of everybody. And they're like, shit, if he could heal him, then I'm pretty sure he can forgive his sins too. And he arose and departed to his house. But when the multitude saw it, they marveled and glorified God, which had given such power unto men. And as Yahushua passed forth from thence, he saw a man named Matthew, sitting at the receipt of custom. That's that toll booth, or let's say his office. And he saith unto him, Follow me. And he arose and followed him. And it came to pass, as Yahushua sat at meat in the house, which is Matthew's house, I think in the book of Luke it tells you that, behold, many publicans and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw it, they, they said unto his disciples, Why eateth your master with publicans and sinners? But when Yahushua heard that, he said unto them, They that be whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. So who's the physician here? Yahushua. And those that are sick are the sinners, right? So that's why he said, I'm here because they're the ones who need me. They need a physician. If you're already whole and you're healthy, you don't need a physician. But go ye and learn what that meaneth. I will have mercy and not sacrifice. For I am not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. See, the Pharisees, they were quick to condemn. They weren't merciful, okay? They would offer sacrifices. They would do all of those things. But the things the Lord required the most, they didn't do. And so they didn't really understand what he said anyway. But as he says here, I am not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. If you are, let's say there's something wrong with your car, right? Maybe it's dealing with your transmission. Would you go and change your tires? Would you go and replace the engine? Would you go and replace the airbags? No, those are fine. You don't touch those. You fix what's wrong. So Yahushua is saying here, if you're good, why am I here? Does a healthy person go to the hospital to go and see a doctor? You make an appointment with an eye doctor, but your eyes are perfectly good. Why? Doesn't make sense, right? The eye doctor is there for those whose eyes are not good. So, verse 14, then came to him the disciples of John, saying, Why do we and the Pharisees fast oft, meaning often, but thy disciples fast not? And Yahushua said unto them, Can the children of the bride chamber mourn, as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then shall they fast. And when you read this in the NLT, it says here, Yahushua replied, Do wedding guests mourn while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. And that was referring to when he would die and go back to the spirit world. And so he wouldn't be with us here physically, right? And that's when they would fast. Verse 16, no man putteth a piece of new cloth. Now, in 16 and 17, the examples that the Lord has given here is to say that they're asking, why don't you do what we do, right? Or the disciples of the Pharisees, right? That was the norm. But Yahushua wasn't there to fit into the norm. Okay, he was like the anomaly in the norm that they had over there. And so his examples he gives in verse 16 and 17 emphasize how it is when you try to fit something new like him or the doctrine that he had into the current system that was, it wouldn't work. So he said, basically, trying to have the things that I do or that my disciples do conform to the way that things are right now, or how you guys already do things, is like verse 16, right? No man putteth a piece of new cloth into an old garment, for that which is put in to fill it up taketh from the garment, and the rent is made worse. What that means is new clothing shrinks, right? New clothing shrinks faster or more intensely than older clothing that's already shrunk. So if you were to sew a piece of new cloth into an old garment, over time, there would be a greater rent, say if that from that new garment shrinking or ripping, eventually making that original tear that was in the old garment worse. So I read in NLT, it says, besides, who would patch old clothing with new cloth? For the new patch would shrink and rip away from the old cloth, leaving an even bigger tear than before. That's what it would be like trying to fit the way that Yahushua was, or what he was teaching, or the new thing that was happening at that time, into the old conformed way that they did things before. It wouldn't work. And then he uses the next example here, right? Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. So in the NLT, it says, and no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the old skins would burst from the pressure, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. New wine is stored in new wineskins, so that both are preserved. See, so Yahushua and the message he was preaching, you couldn't be conformed to the way that things were, right? And those that had that original mindset per se, right? Because they would be likened onto those old bottles, being used to that old way. And so to accept the new doctrine or the gospel or the way that Yahushua was teaching would be too much for them. And they would reject it, likened onto that wine or that bottle bursting. Okay. But rather it had to be put into the new wine, or the minds, the renewed minds, those that were ready and willing to accept it. And they would receive it, preserving the word and their minds or themselves. Verse 18, while he spake these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshipped him, saying, my daughter is even now dead, but come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. And Yahushua arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. For she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. But Yahushua turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. So because you believed, that's what allowed it to work. And now you've been healed. And the woman was made whole from that hour. And when Yahushua came into the ruler's house and saw the minstrels and the people making a noise, that's those there at the funeral, and the people making the funeral songs and so on, he said unto them, give place, for the maid is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. So the people at the funeral, or at least that were there, started laughing, saying, like, what's this guy talking about? She's sleeping. What? We just told you she's dead. You're going to come and talk about she's sleeping. You think if she was sleeping, we wouldn't have woken up already? But when the people were put forth, he went in and took her by the hand, and the maid arose. And the fame hereof went abroad into all that land. And when Yahushua departed thence, 2 blind men followed him, crying and saying, Thou son of David, have mercy on us. And when he was come into the house, the blind men came to him. And Yahushua saith unto them, Believe ye that I am able to do this? They said unto him, Yea, Lord. Then touched he their eyes, saying, According to your faith be it unto you. And their eyes were opened, and Yahushua straitly charged them, saying, See that no man know it. Meaning he gave them a strict command, say don't tell nobody. But he knew they were going to go tell somebody anyway. But they, when they were departed, spread abroad his fame in all that country. And as they went out, behold, they brought to him a dumb man possessed with a devil. And meaning he couldn't speak, and he had a demon on him. And when the devil was cast out, the dumb spake. See, going to show you that what caused him to be mute or not being able to speak was the demon, which they are the cause for a lot of infirmities that people have. Today, they'll throw a scientific term on it and say it's this or it's that, but a lot of it is just demons. And the multitudes marveled, saying it was never so seen in Israel. I mean, they hadn't seen anything like this. But the Pharisees said, He casteth out devils through the prince of the devils. So he's using left-hand practices to do this. And Yahushua went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. So when he just saw like the whole of Israel, in their confused state, he felt sorry for them, right? They looked like sheep that are scattered without a helper, without a shepherd. Then saith he unto his disciples, The harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few, right? Meaning like the work that needs to be done is a lot, but there's only few, right? And the laborers are those that will teach, the teachers. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. And that brings us to the end of the book of Matthew, the 9th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.